Man, you need to buy yourself a gun. What? Gun? Oh. What? Like a handgun. For personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you. What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. Gun? Yeah, gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Jackbooted cops in riot gear, gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday. We are live. This is Primer Time on UCY.tv. My name is Michael, and I am not paying attention to the Tuesday fiasco known as primaries.
Well, I'm Nicholas, and I am paying attention to one of my buddy's homebrewed wheat beers, and it is good.
Give a shout out for your buddy's wheat beer.
All right, so I got a buddy
what's the
named
name
Justin, and he dabbles a little bit in home brewing, and he's made a wheat beer variety for me, and he gave me a 6-pack because I helped him move, and
Nice.
I'm down to one left after tonight, so I've been stretching these out.
Did Justin give these beers any sort of special personal name or anything like that?
Yeah, he said it's yours.
Dude, free and yours is badass. So shout out for Justin and the Justin Brow. And we'd like to give a shout out to AriesTacticalSolution.com and welcome him to UCY. So awesome addition. Can't wait for him to show up. So that's where we're at. So what's going on with you, Nick? How's the build coming?
So, like I said, made the purchase on the Midwest Industries rail. I ordered that, I want to say, on the 20th or the 21st of May. I had it, within the week. So that, the shipping was awesome. They did not charge me for 2-day air. And
that's awesome. That'll save you $20.
That was easy $20. Considering, like I said, I was able to purchase this through their military and law enforcement discount program. All said and done with the front trim ring and the rail itself that comes with the the barrel nut. It came to $163, and so no shipping. That 15-inch rail easily goes for $209. And, like I said, entirely happy with it. I have another 15-inch rail from them. The cool thing is that this one was even on clearance because it was the last one of their flat dark earth ones. And I'm not a big fan of, color coding your rifles, but that's why a lot of people like the AR-15s. You can do just about anything with them. But then I came to a practical point, was like, you know what? In a hurry,
you're not grabbing the wrong rifle.
Yeah, I'm not going to grab the wrong one and try and shove the wrong round into it because.
You know what? I think you'll recall that when we had the conversation about you first starting this 300 blackout build, that was one of my main concerns was that the 223 or the 300 blackout cartridge will fit in the 5.56 chamber.
Right.
And
this is
that caused
the same
tremendous tremendous failure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that would be catastrophic. And the cool thing is, like I said, I have the 300 Blackout has a 15-inch black aluminum rail. This one is the Flat Dark Earth 15-inch aluminum rail. So I know instinctively that if I see any kind of color other than black, I know that I can shoot 5.56 in it. Like I said, my third AR is a standard military M forgery. So that one I will not mistake for anything other than 5.56.
right, that's your standard tool, the same tool you've used at work for the last 20 years.
Right, right. So now, and like I said, I received it. It was packaged well. Not a ding on it. It's not like they put it on clearance because it was a blemish or anything like that. Absolutely fine. No issues whatsoever. Did a dry fit. The threads are tight. It's going to go on perfectly. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. When are you going to plan to get out there and put some rounds down in the range?
Well, right now, like I said, having recently relocated, I'm still getting a work area set up. One of the next projects is going to be to build a workbench so that I can attach a table vise and be able to start doing the upper receiver build. So that way I have a level playing area and something that I can use to hold my my vise blocks and get this build done correctly. So I still have to assemble the gas port and the gas tube, and then make sure that once I have everything else lined up, I'll get the barrel nut into battery with the upper receiver, and then being able to dry fit the gas tube, and get the rail on top of that, and just make sure it's all set up well. It's honestly, you can knock it out half hour if you're experienced. You can knock it out probably 2 hours if you're going to take your time. So the big thing
that includes rewinding the YouTube video to see where.
Oh, definitely, and pause button is a great thing. If YouTube is one of the greatest teaching mediums out there, because you can learn how to do anything and you can hit pause. You can back up and you don't have to deal with a bitchy teacher.
Right, that's right. In this brand new 5.56 area that we're exploring tonight, I thought we'd kind of really go back to the root of the show, and let's talk about a rifle. And I'm going to go down the same 5.56 path with you, but I'm going to take a slight detour, and let's talk about the KelTec SU-16 series of rifles. What do you know? What do you know about those?
So it's interesting that you sent me this. Oh, I guess 2-3 days ago.
Right.
Yeah, and I've never really seen this before. It's an interesting design, from my standpoint. It's not one that I was really familiar with because KelTec's not somewhere that I normally look at for rifles.
Right, and it is kind of a company that's got a reputation for having almost a disposable sort of weapon. It's very budget minded, very budget conscious. It's usually made out of a large amount of polymer with as many stampings as possible and a bare minimum of machining. It's a company started by a guy named George Kilgren, and he's had many other designs of firearms in the past. And KelTec, he took a completely new path. And he's come up with some really radical designs. And I'd say one of the two biggest knocks on KelTec would be the fit and finish of the firearms, not necessarily the function, but the fit, finish, and the availability. And along with the availability, this SU-16 is a fairly rare item as well. I see more KelTec P11 pistols in 9mm out there, that pretty much more than anything. Although I'm starting to see a lot of that little double tube shotgun, the KSG. But
right,
I was able to get my hands on one of these, and I'll tell you what, it's a fairly interesting design. Okay, so it's a 5.56 or 223 rifle, and it's actually stamped 5.56 on the receiver of this rifle. Now, this rifle is, I would dare say, it's more than 60% polymer. it takes an AR-15 magazine, the exact same NATO standard 5.56 magazine as every other AR-15 in the world. It's got a fairly interesting design where it departs from the AR-15 series of rifles, as this uses a long stroke gas piston, similar to, say, something found like in an AK-47 or possibly in an SKS. It's actually a Eugene Stoner design from a ways back, but it's very, very similar to the AK-47 design. And so in layman's terms, what that means is it does not shit where it eats. And
which is always good advice.
It is. It really is. And that's really kind of the problem here with the AR-15 that I've always had in my mind, is that it shits where it eats. And by that crude saying, what I mean is that the gas impingement system. So the bullet, it enters the chamber and it's fired and it propels down the barrel, being pushed by gas. Well, there's a little hole in the barrel that bleeds off gas that throws gas down a tube, which ends up impacting the bolt face and pushing the bolt back. So now you've got where that gas impacts the bolt face. You've got a buildup of carbon, of dirt, of fouling that will impact the function of this weapon. And this piston-driven rifle moves the bowel movement of the cartridge firing down to the end of the gas tube where the piston sits, where the head of the piston sits, and it makes it all happen there. So the chamber stays clean. Right. Now, this rifle being made of polymer and kind of not necessarily the thickest and heaviest of barrels. It's not a bull barrel by any means. Places that I've read about this, they're calling it a pencil barrel. I'd say it's almost maybe just a tad thinner than a standard AK barrel. I wouldn't say that it's meant for long-term heavy Afghanistan-style firefights where you go through 9 magazines in a hurry. I don't think so, but I know that it will go through 2 magazines in a hurry and still remain useful. It's got a couple of nifty features on it, kind of innovative to this design and unique to this design, nothing that will translate really to anything else. This has got a foregrip on it that actually breaks down and becomes a bipod.
That's an interesting design.
It actually really is. So, and that's actually the breaking down the foregrip to expose the bipod is actually also part of the cleaning procedure of this rifle to pull the piston out. I would say that on a dry level surface like concrete, the bipod seems to be a bit wobbly and not necessarily the most functional of items. On a bag, a softer rest, something with some purchase, maybe like a piece of carpet or definitely on grass in the dirt, it works. It has a little bit of something to dig into, and it holds much better. This rifle is advertised as being a takedown rifle, and personally, after having my hands on it and using it, it's I don't think the takedown feature that it's advertised as is necessarily usable, and it's not takedown as in having a folding stock. It actually flips apart, and it's not usable when it's in its folded state. It's got one single takedown pin similar to an AR-15, but unlike an AR-15, it will actually come all the way out, and it's very, very small, and it's sort of easy to lose track of if you're not keeping your eye on the ball.
And that's a problem with any kind of small arms part.
Well, and especially with pins. Pins they have a tendency just to disappear if you're not 100% on the ball and keep paying attention to the P's and Q's and dotting the T's and crossing the I's and whatnot. Let's see. Another nifty feature on this rifle would be that the buttstock is hollowed out and channeled to take two proprietary 10-round magazines for the AR-15. They're a plastic construction, very similar to a thermal magazine, made of the same kind of Zytel plastic that or polymer that the rifle is made out of. And I did not use those 10-round magazines. I'm not necessarily a fan of like those type of plastic magazines. I don't want to abuse them. I've got metal magazines, which the rifle functions perfectly with. In past experiences with other firearms, magazines that have plastic bead lips tend to wear quite rapidly when impacting a metal bolt. And even if it's the slightest run over it, it's wear and tear that will tear them apart and render them unusable. So that's a sparing minimum event. But then I found something very interesting as well, that let's say I don't like those two little plastic magazines. You can fit a single 30-round magazine in that stock as well. So
Okay.
it's actually kind of neat. It's very forward thinking. It's got a Picatinny rail molded into the upper receiver area on it. It's a side charging reciprocating bolt. Very simple, very lightweight. It was accurate to 150 yards, and I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's fairly nice. Simple takedown. When you're disassembling the piston, it's the piston and the bolt assembly are just a tad different, and it's very dependent on pushing pins out and once again aligning parts the correct way so everything fits together. The piston head running into the piston shaft and the spring on the inside of that takes a little bit of time and patience to line up all the holes to drop the pins in. And one of the things I would say is if you're going to come across one of these in one of its many versions, make sure you have like a little bowl or a cup or a paper plate or something that you can put these pins in so you do not lose them.
Yeah, you probably actually want to get one of those little metal cups that are magnetized that they sell for auto mechanics.
I think they sell those at places like Harbor Freight, even at Walmart. They're $3 or $4 a piece, sometimes $9.99 if you're one of the unlucky shoppers. But that's totally worth it right there, and especially with something like this that's got I guess it's a trade-off in the price and the construction of this thing for its amazing function, and I think that's livable. Now, this is not something that's up to say Heckler and Koch standards. This is not going to be a German army rifle by any means.
Right.
This is not going to be an American rifle, but I could see this being a rifle that's distributed to partisans in some sort of third world. This is definitely a viable method of home defense. 5.56 is a fairly decent cartridge. It's what the military uses, and this comes in priced right. Brand new, they're looking at about $600, $650. Sometimes you can find them used right around $400.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's
keep
one
your
thing
eyeballs.
you brought up about the compatibility of the magazines.
I think that's one of the biggest things right there is the magazine compatibility. And
Right.
to me, in a similar, or I shouldn't say a similar, but a rifle in the same 5.56 category with same intended uses, you'd have to look at something like the Ruger Mini 14. And I think that's a great design. It's an excellent design, if not a tad dated. But the biggest problem in my mind is that the Ruger Mini 14 uses proprietary magazines. They are Mini 14 magazines. They are not NATO standard, made by the millions every year magazines. And they're quite expensive and a little bit more rare to find.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, like I said, you've got a couple different proprietary designs that are out there. And for the utility that a standard steel GI mag gives you, it's nice to have the fit and the function of a polymer mag, but you just can't go wrong with a steel mag. I mean, those have been upgraded from the original waffle. I don't know if you remember the Vietnam era M16A1 waffle style magazines that were
that was a shorter magazine. That was usually a 20 round magazine.
right, and it was prone to fouling and not feeding ammunition properly, and they went to the current standard 30 round magazine. They've updated the followers. They've updated the spring component to make sure that it's out of metal that doesn't corrode or doesn't fail. You can get one of those just from any store. You can get one of the steel GI mags for anywhere between $6 and $8. Your polymer mags, you're looking anywhere between 12 to 15, all the way up to 20, depending upon if you get a 30 or a 40 round magazine.
And then you start looking for drum magazines, and you start getting into the over $100 usually, even for the Korean ones.
Well, yeah, because then you also have the Surefire marketed magazines, and those have 60 rounds and 100 round. So
right, and they refer to those as coffin magazines, and what those usually are is a quad stack magazine, where you would look at a standard AR-15 magazine as being a double stack. And these are a quad stack, and I don't know if I'm sold on the function of them. I've seen a bunch of videos, but honestly, if military don't say you can use it, I don't think it's appropriate.
Yeah, well, like I said, I haven't had any problem with my Magpul PMags. I've had steel mags for the last 20 years, so I'm very familiar with those. Those are easy to break down, easy to clean. Not that the magazines I have tend to get dirty. Even the ones that I've had downrange, they didn't get dirty because they sat in magazine pouches for forever. So, unless you're out there rolling around in the dirt, a very minimum of maintenance is required to keep those things in perfect operating condition.
How often have you seen standard metal magazines as issued to soldiers fail?
One out of maybe every 1,000 that I've ever touched or seen in use. Very, very rare that the steel mags that I've seen. I mean, they issued a product update or a recall, for lack of a better term. When I was in Afghanistan in 2010, they changed out the followers, which is the actual portion of the magazine that the bullet rests on that sits above the spring. Since then, I haven't even heard of anybody's ever failing on them.
And that was it was a mandatory recall on those, because
right.
I believe they went from a green to a tan. Is that correct?
Correct. And basically, what ends up happening is you'll receive through official channels. They'll send down a message, and it'll affect all units, and especially the armors will be the action officers, and they will everybody will come in and either do a 1-for-1 swap to turn in 7 magazines, which is your basic combat load, and you'll receive 7 magazines with a new follower, and they'll just pull the followers out of the old one and issue those magazines to somebody else.
Right. Now I'll ask you one more question on this. How often does the military sell used magazines? And I'll just give you kind of a reference point of this question. You said that was in about 2010 when you got that recall notice.
Right.
Well, I remember in 2013, it must have been mid-2000, probably about this time in 2013. It was about the time when the Feinstein gun ban bill was going through. And I was at a gun show at the Reliance Center in Houston, it was just a massive packed show. This was the weekend before that vote was going to take place, and there was a lady there who had, I guess you guys call them transit cases, and these things, I think they held like 400 magazines in each one of them, and she had a ton of those, probably easy 35 of those cases, and she sold out of those magazines at $50 a piece. And I'll tell you what, every one of them had a green follower in it.
Yeah, so I mean those are old. It's not like they're going to fail immediately. but they may experience problems feeding at some point. We did it as a preventative. You know, we have different arsenals that do, you know, what we call depot level maintenance. Usually we'll have Red River. They handle things like engines for tactical vehicles. You know, Picatinny arsenals, they're developing different implements to be able to attach to the weapons. You know, we've actually had the guys come out from Illinois, and I can't remember the name of the arsenal that's out there, but they came out when I was at the National Training Center in the Mojave Desert in California, and they actually ran our firearms through a couple gauging tests to make sure that they were locking up properly and that the bolts were in battery with the firing chamber, and, you know, just making sure that the weapons were to standard. They weren't by any means making sure that, you know, we had the latest and greatest stuff, but what they would do is if for whatever reason to say that the bolt carrier did not have the proper lockup, they would swap them out and give us a new one. So, you know,
a new rifle or a new bolt?
No. They give us a new bolt carrier.
Okay, so you got kind of a go no go test with an armorer.
Yeah,
that's Let me ask you this: how many soldiers? And maybe you can't give me a direct number, but to your estimation, how many soldiers would you say that the military has dedicated to firearms maintenance?
Well, we actually have soldiers or small.
I mean, I know every soldier is supposed to be able to maintain his firearm, but I mean, there's got to be something that's above the soldier's skill level, above just breaking it down.
Right. And there's a couple ways that we achieve this. Usually, every company in the Army has a arms room. So the company level, which is anywhere from 110 soldiers up to, you know, 130, but usually sitting around 90 to 100 soldiers in a company. They have an armorer, and the armorer is responsible for doing unit level maintenance, which is a step above what the individual soldier can do, and has all the appropriate tools, has been to the armorer's course at Fort Lee or one of their mobile training teams that are usually at the installation level, and they will go ahead and they'll learn how to basically do unit level maintenance, things that are above the individual soldier's ability or responsibility to repair. Usually change out some parts, maybe do some light gunsmithing, but that's about it. There are small arms repairmen. You know, that's a occupational specialty that we have. But like I said, those are usually found at what we used to call them Division Support Command. We had DISCOMs back in the day, and that was where we had done a lot of what we call third shop maintenance, or a higher level of maintenance ability. And then, like I said, anything beyond that, major repairs would have to go to depot level.
Okay, how many rifles would you guess that the Army trashes out a year that this is just no longer functional? Or it's beyond, you know, a cost-effective method to replace this rifle.
Right. So usually that's done by batch. You know, every rifle in the Army's inventory is serial numbered, and the Army knows where that rifle is at all times. Mainly because that when you lose a rifle, all things go to hell. If you, like I said, if you lose it during a combat situation, you know, that's something that can be written off. But when you're in garrison, those rifles are accounted for 100% of the time. If you even have that rifle in your arms room, but on paper lose something or an administrative error that shows that rifle is no longer in your arms room, that's justification enough to have the armorer, the assistant armorer, the arms room officer, who's usually the company executive officer, all the way up to the company commander, relieved for cause if there is a administrative or actual physical loss of accountability.
Now, I can say that back years ago when I was running around in a Red Cross vehicle, I went to a military base that shall remain unnamed, and was there for a blood draw and to pick up the proceeds of it. And during that time, there was some sort of weapons problem, and the base did go on lockdown. And I was thoroughly searched before I was allowed to leave, and I was one of the few people allowed to leave. And it was merely because I had an entire truck full of blood.
Yeah, that's that's one of those things. People don't necessarily see it from time to time how frequently the Army does go into lockdown. Weapons are one of those things that they don't mess around with. If you lose a weapon, life ceases to exist for everyone in the immediate area. You will basically go into lockdown. You can be sequestered in a motor pool. If you're out in the field, I've seen people stretch hand to hand and do something called arms across the installation or the post, or if you're in the National Training Center, we call it hands across the desert, and you will go inch by inch scouring of an area looking for that piece of sensitive equipment, whether it's a pair of night vision goggles, whether it's a GPS receiver, or whether it's a small arm. You will literally be stretched across a 60-mile wide front, and you will be, arm to arm with your nearest and dearest friends trying to find that one piece of equipment.
Will you be also cussing at the guy who lost you a piece of equipment?
Well, the funny thing is that it's very rare to find out who did it, while it's been going on. So you're cursing a lot, but you're cursing this phantom of a person. But once you find out, yeah, that guy's car probably will not hold air in its tires for very long.
Your gas tank had a sweet tooth, honey.
Yeah. So, but absolutely, there won't be any moths nearby.
All right, so let's change this up a second here, but yet keep it along the same lines. We're talking about losing weapons, and we've got Hillary Clinton, and doesn't that say it all?
I don't think that you're going to. The individual may not exactly lose the weapons; they will have them taken away.
I think she's going to.
They will take them away. That's not losing. That's being taken away.
Yeah. Well, Hillary Clinton was on TV over the weekend with George Stephanopoulos, TV personality now. He's a news presenter, anchor, co-host, political pundit, whatever you want to call him. He's a Clinton bagman is the best way to actually describe him. And he had a interesting question and answer session with Hillary Clinton regarding the Second Amendment. And I'm fairly sensitive to the propaganda that's coming out regarding the Second Amendment and firearms rights in the United States. And this was pretty much a softball question that should have been a simple way for Hillary to show that she's in favor of the Second Amendment as it stands, and the rights of the United States citizen as outlined in the Constitution and in the Bill of Rights. And she refused to say that firearms, the individual ownership of firearms, is a part of the Second Amendment, and gave a very lengthy, detailed explanation as to how it may not possibly be, and if it is, how this is something that can definitely be controlled and restricted
and
regulated by federal agencies. And Miss Clinton, who has a history of not being a friend to the American firearms owner, really has come across in the past couple of days with some what we would consider to be outrageous proposals. $25,000 tax on NFA items, $10,000 tax on modern sporting rifles. She's right on the edge of calling for outright confiscation if you were unable to pay the tax.
She's already done that. She is a proponent of Australian-style gun control, and that is exactly what confiscation looks like.
Well, and we have to examine the incident in Port Arthur, Tasmania, that precipitated this event. And like many firearms-related events that grab a lot of headlines in the United States, this thing doesn't quite add up. And in a lot of respects, it's very similar to the incident in Newtown, Connecticut, where things don't add up. Number one, they're young, sort of spoiled, mentally deficient shooters that have amazing kill ratios.
Right. So,
And that just doesn't happen. I mean, Nick, you've been in combat situations. You work with soldiers that have been in combat situations. Does anybody that you've had any kind of experience or contact with end up making 26 kills out of 30 rounds?
yeah, unless you're a designated marksman, that's a extremely good ratio for kills to actual bullets expended. Back in the day, I remember I was told that during the Vietnam War, the spray and pray was the order of the day. We don't even tend to use 3-round burst. That is the capability of our rifles. We don't even do that. So you'd hope to go for the mantra of one shot, one kill. It's highly unlikely. If you could hit half of what you're shooting at in combat, I'd say you're doing pretty damn good.
Well, these are the things that make these situations questionable in a lot of people's minds, and these are the events that are going to lead to the confiscation of the firearms rights, and it's being pushed. Senator Tim Keene out of your great state of Virginia, what's up with him? I heard that he's pushing something through right now.
Oh, I haven't even been paying attention to the stuff going on locally because, with the Attorney General that we have, Mark Herring, you may remember a few months back he tried to do the push to end reciprocity for concealed carry permits that the governor actually overturned. So that's the last point that I was really interested in Virginia politics. But nothing surprises me that comes out of this state because our governor happens to be the guy who was running the Lincoln bedroom rental service while the Clintons were in the White House. It's one of those things where Terry McAuliffe, has been recently announced that he was under investigation by the FBI for some campaign contributions of dubious origins coming from a U.S. national, by meaning a green card holder, basically a guy from China who is a known businessman who contributed a ton of cash. It's one of those things that no matter where you look in terms of politicians, when it comes to them saying one thing, doing another, if they're not doing that, something's wrong. But when it comes to anything that has to do with the Clintons and firearms, you can just rest assured that they are coming after your firearms. Bill Clinton got the '94 crime bill passed, and when it expired, it was of very, very little success. And I think that one of the things now that Bill Clinton's actually had to answer for is that it put quite a few people in jail for very long sentences, and he's taken a lot of flack from it from the Black Lives Matter crowd.
Well, look, we're seeing that there's a lot of race baiting going on, especially within this particular subject. We've got an issue out of Chicago. There was a gun buyback, and straight up honest, some white folks were told that white people's guns weren't going to be accepted at that gun buyback.
Wow, that's pretty racist.
I dropped you that story up there, but it comes out of I believe it comes out of Bearing Arms, and a couple guys went to a gun buyback in the Chicago metro area, in the Cook County area, and they took some firearms. And granted, they were probably not the an HKG3 that the cops are looking to get off the street, or it's a Tommy gun or something, or maybe even a rocket launcher. Granted, these are probably some homemade zip guns and some non-functional firearms that these guys are going to turn in and try and get, hey, they're giving away, $150 gift certificates or whatever. Yeah, take the gift certificate and go buy some ammo with it and turn in some piece of crap. I'm with them on that. But they were told that they were not going to be taking those people's guns, that it was for only people in the community. And these people were all members of that community, all residents of that county, worked within that area and lived within that area. So we've got, I'll dare call it Bolshevik agitprop going on. And on many different levels, impacting the rights of the Americans and the safety of the American people, and actually being something straight out of the Rules for Radicals playbook.
Yeah. Well, you know, the funny thing about, you know, it's disingenuous to say this is a buyback to get guns off the street if you're just not taking any gun, no matter who's willing to turn it in. If you're getting that selective, then obviously there is an agenda being enforced. And yeah, you know, that probably didn't make for the correct narrative. You know, it's funny. We've seen time and time again that there's these gun buyback deals. Whether it's the ones that happen in Tucson, and you get the angry lesbian cop who's up there making a face like, you know, somebody just pissed in her cornflakes, or you know, you get the ones that are outside places like Austin, Texas, where the city itself and Travis County, which the city sits in, you know, they want to keep their town with a certain feel and hipster vibe and whatnot. But you know what the funny thing is whenever they do these, it's always the same 87-year-old women that are coming in, turning in the firearms that their husbands left for them, you know, before they passed away, and there's nobody else in their family to take these. And these are the same people that are vulnerable to the fear and the fear mongering that goes on, telling them, you know, your gun in your house is not safe. You know, your house is going to be broken into, and your gun is going to be used in a violent crime, and you are going to be liable for it. It's fear mongering. It's pandering to the basic instinct of what aged Americans are, because normally that's what I see. I see people trying to get the $75 gift card for groceries, or the prepaid Visa card that they could use at Best Buy. You know, I'm just, it offends me as an American to think that at some point in my life, you know, depending upon how long I live, there's going to be somebody who's going to be a whippersnapper telling me that, you know what, for my own safety, I need to give that up. And you know what? The first time it happens, that young punk is probably going to get popped in the mouth.
And I can agree with you on that. I'll tell you, I was playing around with the YouTube the other day, and I was linked through the hot YouTube news little section they have to an anti-gun violence prevention mission, and it was called Wear Orange for Violence, and talking about violence in Chicago, and really, once again, placing the blame on an inanimate object, not talking about the circumstances that lead to any of the shootings, the culture that leads to the shootings, the culture that glorifies the killings and the murder and the crime that goes along with it. Also, not having any sort of discussion about the economics that lead to the crime, or the laws themselves that are not conducive to the function of the area. And at the very end of it, young guy an aspiring rapper, of course.
Aspiring. He's looking to make it big.
Well, he's got a mixtape on the way, and it's fire, dude. It's fire.
Like fire, like hot, like it's stolen.
Like drop it like it's hot, baby. And at the end of his little spiel about how the guns have impacted his community, and you know how he has to pour out one for his homies all the time, he says we have to do something about the guns for the kids.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, we use that phrase in a joking manner quite often, you know, for the children, of course. Please, I mean, won't you think of the children? I mean, somebody is obviously not thinking of the children here. And they unabashedly use that. I mean, with no hair on their tongue, they use the for the children. And I'll be honest with you, I was fairly disgusted. I was not necessarily disgusted by the advert. I was disgusted by the fact that they felt ballsy and empowered enough to actually think that they could entice a market with it. And I was disgusted by the fact that they thought that they could entice a market for that with this advertisement, which means there's actually a market out there that would respond to that. And man, it was just disheartening.
Yeah,
It really was.
You know, the way I look at it is, at some point, very, very soon, depending upon the way this election goes, Americans are going to have to make a choice. Are you willing to be a lawful gun owner and comply with the direction of the campaigns where they're going, and at some point be under scrutiny, or an overnight felon like what happened in Connecticut after they passed their gun bill outlawing AR-15s and the AR-15 magazines? Are you gonna have to make a choice that says, do I turn my stuff in and or risk going to jail at some point when somebody rats me out because they saw me going to my own range on my own land, or going to a shooting club where I had a certain color, style, or design of rifle? That's where we're headed. That's the way I look at it.
Oh, I'm thinking that we're headed to a point where if you have a rifle, why are you an insane anti-government, pro-Al Qaeda, blah blah blah? That's what I think we're headed to.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think that even after 8 years of the current administration that we have in office, one of the things I'd like to bring up, we didn't really touch on it. Quite a few listeners in chat have military backgrounds. Quite a few of our listeners were in the service long before I was. And as a matter of fact, next week will be
You people are old.
Yeah.
We're both old now, so you're even older than us.
Yeah. So, as a matter of fact, next week on the 15th will actually be my 21st year of active federal service completed. So, that'll tell you that I'm right about retirement age. Folks have been there before, but we have a retired lieutenant general by the name of General Boykin. He was a founding member of Special Forces Operation Detachment Delta, otherwise known as Delta Force. He participated in the attempted rescue of the Iranian-held hostages back in 1979. I was wounded. This guy's got some street cred in the Army. He's been under attack from a gentleman named Mikey Weinstein of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. This is a guy who is a Jew by birth and has somehow made himself out to be an atheist. He's going after General Boykin. He's basically been hounding the organizations that have either employed General Boykin or have looked to seek to have him as a guest speaker. General Boykin has been in the news for the last 2 weeks because his teaching position at a university was rescinded and his contract was not renewed in response to a campaign that Mikey Weinstein persecuted against him. And the latest thing is Fort Riley in Kansas, which is the home of the 1st Infantry Division of World War II, World War I fame. They held basically this whole week, having been the 72nd anniversary of D-Day. This week is very important for the division, being one of the divisions that landed at Utah Beach. They were going to have General Boykin show up and do a guest appearance as a speaker for a voluntary prayer breakfast, non-denominational. He was just going to go talk about his faith. This is an opportunity for soldiers in uniform to be able to exercise their First Amendment right of the freedom of the religion. Mikey Weinstein got on the phone to Fort Riley and convinced the division commander, General Grigsby, to have him taken off and his invitation rescinded. this is the state of the military we're at today. Soldiers are not able.
Okay, so what's the Bolshevik bastard's problem with this general? What did this general say that agitated?
That he's a militant. That he's a militant Christian with values that scare his Mikey Weinstein's client. Now, Mikey Weinstein is a former lawyer for the U.S. Air Force, so he understands how the military works, and he knows what buttons he has to push. But the level of just sheer audacity that he has is outstanding, because in his written complaint about General Boykin being called to give this speech at a voluntarily attended prayer breakfast, was that he had so many complaints for soldiers in the Fort Riley military community that some of them were even crying and weeping on the phone as they described the trauma that they were going to experience by having a general of the Christian faith speak at a voluntary attendance prayer breakfast. I mean, to me, this is insane. You know, I grew up in an army where, you know what, they didn't hit me in basic training, but sometimes the shit they said to me, I've been hit before. I wish they would have hit me.
The words hurt.
Yeah. Physical pain can go away after a while. Some of that shit made me like keep an eye over my shoulder the entire time I was there. You know, I personally think that, you know what, you have problems with the division that was founded in World War I to kick Nazi ass in World War II. You know, when they haven't changed, they've changed their motto to dignity and respect. It used to be called the Victory Division. Now it's dignity and respect. So we're not going to just kill you. We're going to do it nicely, and we're going to respect you as we bury you.
In accordance with strict Muslim tradition at the middle of C.
Yeah, and before.
All right, so like this Weinstein piece of shit. Is he pushing for? Is he receiving any other support from the military aside from being, you know, acquiesced to on this situation by General Grigsby?
Well, he like I said, General Grigsby is the current division commander for 1st Infantry Division. It's a mechanized division in Fort Riley, Kansas, outside the Little Apple. We call it Manhattan, Kansas. You know, it's no different than any other Army post. We have voluntary prayer breakfasts. I've been to prayer breakfasts, usually for the free food. Not going to lie, if somebody's giving free chow, you're going to have a hard time keeping me out of there. I can bow my head. I can put my hands behind my back.
You can bow your head in any religion.
I can say amen, and I can say pass the fucking bacon. And, you know, that works for me.
You know, it's almost a trite and overused term, but man, this is cultural Marxism. This is the destruction of the culture. This is
how appropriate that you use the term Marx for a guy who originally was Jewish and then began to spread his atheistic manifesto across Europe. Very, very appropriate terminology there.
Absolutely, this is cultural Marxism. This is a corrosion of the fabric of society, and well, it's up to us. And I don't know. I don't know what to do anymore.
Well, I'll tell you this
much.
Don't. You know, I never served with General Boykin. I believe he retired long before I was in service. But I can tell you that it's getting difficult for even military chaplains to do their job. If you reject the premise of this guy from the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, which is an atheist group, it's, you know, hey, if you don't want to believe
the freedom from religion.
Exactly. And yeah. if you're an atheist or you're a free thinker, hey, more power to you. And I don't care. But you know what? You're damn sure you're not gonna affect my rights or the rights of anybody else to openly and freely worship in the way that they want. That's just
not worship as they see fit.
Exactly.
But it's none of your fucking business.
Oh yeah, and I am just the right color to fail. I'll tell you that much.
Man, like the song says, buy a gun. Geez, I got a feeling it's coming, man. After watching the violence at the Trump rallies, you know, this along with your story of cultural Marxism, I watched a little bit of the shit that was going on in San Jose, and yeah, this is Bolshevik agitprop. These are the same people that took down the Tsar and starting in 1916, and you know, ending it up in 1917 with the abdication and, you know, Red October and the whole anointing of Lenin. Yeah, these are the same people. And I you know, honestly, I truly feel that there's going to be violence in this election season. And there for a while, I kind of thought it was going to be the disaffected Bernie voter who just is now coming to the realization that the system is fucked, but they can also buy a firearm. And them not being very, you know, not necessarily firearms people or people well indoctrinated with the Second Amendment, that they would not necessarily have the same values as we have and would use it inappropriately. After watching this shit in San Jose, my mind has changed. I have a feeling that it's going to be a Trump supporter, and it's going to be probably an old dude wearing a Vietnam veteran T-shirt and a Trump hat who gets whacked by some kid carrying a Mexican flag or a Soviet flag or something. Hits him, and that old man is going to pull out his gun, and he is going to drop 11 Bolsheviks because the Marines taught him how to shoot.
Yeah.
And you know what? He'll be goddamn well within his rights for under self-defense. Because I'll tell you what, man, you hit an old man, and you deserve to get shot.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to – I have a feeling that's what's going to kick it off, man. And
having recruited in San Jose, I was there for 4 years. I will tell you that if you want to know where a large population of the illegal aliens across the border go, you have to look no further than San Jose.
Right.
So hey, Mike, we need to hit some 4 rules of firearm safety.
All right, every firearm is loaded until you visually and physically inspect and verify that it is not loaded. Rule number 2, keep that barrel pointed in a safe direction. Do not let that muzzle cover anything you do not wish to destroy. Rule number 3, know what is your target and know what is beyond your target at all times. And the most important rule, the 4th rule, is keep your booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge the weapon. Do not have a negligent discharge. Do not give these sons of bitches any more ammunition in the fight against our rights. I can't say that firmly enough without any more conviction. I mean, that's all I got.
Yeah, so, you know, the way I look at it is, you know, go out, buy a gun for freedom. Go out and buy a gun for yourself. Go out and buy a gun so that you have something to pass on down to your kids. You know, boy, girl, or if you have one of them transgendered kids, you can even buy them a gun too. Because you know what? In certain states, they still tie them up and beat them at fence posts and leave them out in the middle of a snowstorm. Because that was the big lie. That was the big lie that we got told back when I was going through high school, was the Matthew Shepard case, which really started the whole gay rights movement. You know, a lot of folks don't remember Matthew Shepard was the gay student from Wyoming that was given the
timed and crucified onto some barbed wire, and it turns out that he was actually
he was killed by his lover, who was
well. It was also a lover and a guy that he sold some bad methamphetamine to. He sold it was either bad or it was cut, or you know, it wasn't exactly what he said. Yeah, it was a drug related killing.
Yeah, but that didn't fit the narrative.
But that doesn't sell. So.
Yeah.
No. Just like the Los Angeles Times wrote a great big huge op-ed piece on the UCLA shooting that just happened, which was basically a PrimerTime. A man killed his wife and then 2 co-workers or two former colleagues. But they wrote not a goddamn thing about 69 people shot in Chicago and 8 people killed just 3 days prior or 2 days prior on Memorial Day.
Yeah.
So,
all right, well, there's the bumper. I want to say thanks to Jules. Michael, it's great to be on here.
Nick, I enjoy every minute with you, man. Everybody, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for listening. UCY.TV gives you what you do not need.